This is the GSL 601 Team Delta Design Project presentation for the organization Uber. So our teaming is that we were 4 members geographically dispersed, varying backgrounds and full-time jobs, including one of us being an Uber driver. Our primary communication was via email due to work schedules, time zones, lack of accessibility to other web services, and this ensured that all could share in the development. Our innovation is driven by varied experiences and perspectives, and our consensus of a team goal was integral to gaining momentum. Our design morphed from research and understanding of the problem and identification of areas strategically important to Uber. Since we corresponded using email in deciding our organization, after debating the pros and cons, both Harley-Davidson and Amazon, we decided to go with Uber. We decided the organization is an excellent research topic due to many of the good versus bad strategic leadership qualities that can be looked at when viewing the company. So our main criteria were that the organization be nationwide or larger, there being an abundance of scholarly research available. And like I said, we considered both Amazon and Harley before deciding on Uber, and Uber met all of these criteria. So what is Uber? Uber was founded in 2009. The company was launched with the idea it would transform the century-old transportation industry and the way that consumers viewed and used private transportation, making it more user-friendly and accessible. Its success stems from multiple factors, including the ease of use, timeliness, and saving the consumer money. So Uber's a rideshare company akin to a taxi service. Lauren Gieser states in her article Risk, Reward, and Responsibility, the advent of rideshare companies has dramatically disrupted and changed the transportation market over the last 5 years. Rideshare companies have helped to lower cost and increase mobility for consumers, stimulate job growth by allowing owners of vehicles to enter a more permeable transportation market, and bring new ideas into old markets in need of innovation. So all of this begs the question, what exactly is ride sharing? According to the Oxford English Dictionary, ride sharing is an arrangement in which a passenger travels in a private vehicle driven by its owner for a fee, especially as arranged by means of website or app. Let's look at Uber's strategy. Travis Kalanick, the then CEO of Uber, reported to have said this during a TED Talk. The founders are inherently anti-regulatory, anti-government, and embraced a bad boy image of breaking through the rules to deliver what the people want. They also did not support union members in a taxi strike and continued to offer rides. Their initial focus on customers was hugely rewarded as customers turned from using taxis and went to the rideshare program. Many cities, despite the initial reluctance and protest from taxi companies, have relented to allow Uber to operate outside the regulatory domain followed by taxi companies and established by law due to the huge customer demand. Taxi revenues are down by a third, and now competitor rideshare applications are moving into the territory. So in their mission statement, Uber has stated that they're on a mission to have such an impact on U.S. infrastructure that Americans can reclaim their cities, and it seems that they are having a great effect on that. From Uber's website, from their story, they state that for women and men who drive with Uber, our app represents a flexible new way to earn money. For cities, they help strengthen local economies, improve access to transportation, and make the streets safer. When you make transportation as reliable as running water, everyone benefits. Across borders, cultures, and languages, we're proud to connect people who need a reliable ride with people looking to earn money driving their car. So Uber has been traditionally seen as a rideshare service, but they're branching out into food delivery like Chef Shuttle, freight services, and designing self-driving automobiles. This reframing is imperative to Uber being able to grow outside their established roles In the book Teaming by Edmondson, he states that framing is a crucial leadership action for enrolling people into any substantial behavior change. It's especially important for promoting teaming and learning. Framing helps people interpret the ambiguous signals that accompany change in a positive and productive light, and it facilitates understanding of new performance expectations. So they're trying to stay on the cutting edge of technology through the use of their apps and the development of self-driving automobiles and offering more services. By utilizing this power of framing, Uber has gone from an organization which focused on efficient and cheap transportation to now including these additional services. So Uber does have many problems that they need to address, and we decided that the root problem Uber is facing is a lack of quality leadership, which then leads to other problems including driver accountability and negative press. As we know, leadership is where everything starts, be it good or bad. And in their book, Learning Leadership, James Kouzes and Barry Posner state, it's been said that only 3 things happen naturally in organizations: friction, confusion, and underperformance. Everything else requires leadership. Because of the necessity of quality leadership, Uber must figure out how they can correct this deficiency before it costs them their organization. In June 2017, Travis Kalanick was forced to step down as CEO by Uber's top 5 investors amid multiple controversies, including external accusations of stolen technology and deliberate attempts to avoid government regulation, as well as internal issues of documented cases of sexual harassment, toxic work environments, and employee retaliation. Kalanick's own bad boy image, coupled with a released video of him berating an Uber driver, contributed to his downfall. Ryan Graves, a longtime ally and former chief executive, also stepped down in August of 2017. Upon printing of the 2017 Fortune magazine article, What Could Take Down Uber?, the company experienced many changes in leadership. The article states that Jeff Jones, Uber's short-tenured president of ride-sharing who arrived from Target, exited a mere months later, and this isn't the only Uber executive to leave this year. Amit Singh, a star technologist from Google, Ed Baker, the growth guru from Facebook, and Rachel Whetstone, another ex-Googler who handled communications and policy, were among the most prominent departures. An issue plaguing fast-growing companies is erosion of accountability, and organizations under stress cause people to focus more on avoiding blame than taking risk and assuming responsibility to solve these problems. The result is a toxic culture where teamwork and trust erode and no one is the custodian of values. Because of this erosion of accountability that Uber is experiencing, they're also having problems with their drivers' accountability. According to a MarketLine case study, the entire negative culture of the Uber accountability starts at the hiring process. If the company slacks in the area of picking and selecting good employees, which it has, then it will continue to be plagued by issues and problems. Their background check jeopardizes the safety of its passengers by failing to adequately check and review the driver that it employs. Part of the issue here is that Uber views their drivers as contractors and not as employees of the company. What this does is establishes a mindset for the drivers as being separate from the company and not part of the team. Because of this, the drivers do not have a sense of buy-in or pride in the organization, which further fosters the erosion of accountability. The company, which has been around just shy of a decade, has consistently had issues with many of its drivers and has not made any significant changes or alterations in its vetting and hiring process. Every time that Uber gets a bad review or ends up in the news for something negative, it hurts their organization and it ostracizes future users of their services. So the root problem that we identified was a lack of quality leadership, and because of this, driver accountability, negative press, and full-time employee issues are impacting the organization. The company has been plagued by these issues since its inception, and it has not taken the appropriate steps to remedy any of the problems. They are constantly in the headlines and constantly receiving negative publicity. This is not a standalone topic, as similar negative instances and situations are occurring at all levels of the company. The leadership must develop a culture of accountability that fosters the correct behaviors in its employees, and this requires that the leadership be open to change and compromise. Although the media like to focus primarily on the drivers of the company, many of the same problems are seen within its full-time employee ranks. There are allegations of sexual harassment, discrimination, and retaliation, which begs the question, how can a company deal with problems at the lower level if it has the same problems at the top? Instead of focusing on improving the relationship with its customers and focusing on how to improve the growth of the company, they're busy dealing with internal problems. These problems are a result of leadership establishing a culture where these behaviors are tolerated, and they fall directly to the leadership to solve. In the book, Practicing Strategy, the authors state that the CEOs, together with the top management team and other collective organizational actors and structures, have a decisive influence in building the history and culture of their firms. So until the leadership at Uber are able to establish a culture of responsibility, they'll continue having problems like these in all areas of the organization. So we recommend that they increase leadership development, increase the driver accountability and the rewards, and establish a rewards program, change the driver legal status via influence on key government regulations and policies, accept limited responsibility for their drivers as a preemptive measure and not always on a defensive, and reframe the bad boy image generated by Kalanick to move to a socially responsible image of reformers. So in making these changes, they're going to have to affect the regulatory environment. The founders of Uber intended to break through the laws and red tape which prohibit efficient customer support of those wanting reliable, fast, cheap transportation services, but they've reached a level of success which requires some sort of regulation to assure the public safety and driver accountability. It's time to grow up, essentially. We recommend that they work with local leaders and taxi organizations to benefit everyone with improved regulations and oversight, and to work with local lawmakers to design new regulations for ride-sharing apps. They have the influence to determine what this regulation should be and to help formulate innovative solutions rather than regulating roadblocks. We suggest that Uber develops teams which are challenged with changing current policies and laws in the states and countries they operate in. They need to identify their biggest opponents and work out a strategy to beat them to the punchline in developing new regulations and policies to catch up with the ride-sharing technology that they utilize. Finally, we recommend that Uber defines a new model of employee with aspects of each legal classification. Right now, their stance of drivers being considered contractors and not employees is leading to lawsuits from drivers. This forces the courts to choose sides and assign responsibility, and with Uber's large economic success, the courts will continue to force them to accept more responsibility. We recommend that they define a third category and offer partial benefits to the drivers and take partial responsibility for those who are using their technology when driving for Uber. So what this can look like is they would establish a driver safety reward program and reward driver training. They'd reward loyalty, so more benefits for the length of time with the company. They'd establish levels of drivers based on background checks. So more in-depth background check earns a different category, like a black diamond, versus an initial background check is a green diamond. The black diamond drivers would pay for these checks, but they'd also earn a higher return on rides because people want to ride with people who have been vetted. And we'd also recommend that they add driver safety information to the app for riders to view when they're picking their driver. If the drivers were converted to employees, then the hiring process would also more than likely become more complicated than it currently is. This would mean that the potential for more in-depth screening and more restrictive background checks being done could vet out many of the less than favorable contractors who have been caught on the wrong side of the law. Would be able to track the effectiveness of these solutions by counting employee infractions before and after implementation, and monitoring the press for a reduction in negative stories relating to Uber. So the number of driver incidents reducing, number of safe driver miles and awards increasing. With the reduction in negative stories, the amount of money that investors could contribute would most likely increase, and the number of HR workforce verified issues by type reducing over time. These are the references that we used in doing our project.